Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another card video at my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm using this fun die set from Spellbinders. This is actually from their March release, and they came out with a bunch of kind of classics and basic sets with nesting shapes that have different intricate details on the outer edge. So some of these have lines or they have dots or things like that. It's a really fun release with a bunch of different shapes. I'm using this circle set, and I thought I would create a card that has a couple shaker areas, and then the other circles are stamped images that are colored with Copics. So I've traced out where the circles will be just as a guide as I create my card. And now I'm placing the dies over another piece of cardstock. These are the pieces that I'm actually going to cut. So I ran those through my die cutting machine, and these three pieces are the ones that will have the stamped and colored images on them. So I'm taking my guide that I just created, and I'm actually going to tape these cut pieces over the top, just so it gives me a little bit more of a visual reference for where these pieces will end up on the finished card. So I'm taping this one here at the top, and I'm going to tape the other two corners. This also helps me make sure that I have the correct pieces in the right corners. So I'm using a stamp set from Lawn Fawn today, and it's a really cute Easter set. I will have this stamp set and also the dies from Spellbinders and every supply that I use in today's video, I will have listed down below in the video description or at my blog. And I always include links to online stores. So if you ever want to pick up any supplies that you see in my videos, you can check out those links down below. So I first stamped the little carrot cake piece, and then I stamped it again, but onto a Post-it note. And I made sure that I stamped it right over the top of the Post-it note where there's the sticky part on the back. And then I placed that down onto my stamped area, trimmed it out, and then placed it onto the stamped area. And this masks off that carrot cake and allows me to stamp the bunny right over the top, but it protects the area of the carrot cake. So I stamped this bunny twice. And the reason why I'm using the MISTI tool for this particular piece is because I wanted to make sure I would be able to stamp it twice if needed, and I did. So I removed that mask, and then I decided that it would be a little bit easier to do all this little stamping away from my MISTI stamp positioning tool. So I removed it from the MISTI, and I just put these little stamps on the back of an acrylic block and continued stamping. By the way, since I am coloring with Copics today, I used some Simon's to Stamp Intense Black ink for all of my stamping. I'm going to do some really simple Copic coloring. I'm not doing a ton of shading. In fact, on the bunny, I really only needed the one color, but I didn't know how light it was going to be with that first try. So I just got like a medium tone gray. And then for all of the carrots, I started out with YR04, and then I brought in YR18 as the darker shade. I'm sort of giving this card a color palette of orange, purple, and green. I thought those were kind of really Easter colors and lends itself to the carrots and also the bunny and things like that. So for the carrot cake, I did a few different colors actually, because I wanted it to have sort of that multicolored brown look that carrot cake usually has. Kind of has a mottled look to it. So I used 3 different colors and speckled on the last 2 shades. And then I used a warm gray number 3 just to add a little bit of shading onto the icing. I also used YG03 for the green. So then I decided I better go ahead and die cut the actual area of the front of the card so that I could plan out the different colors for my shaker areas. So I placed those pieces onto another piece of cardstock, put the dies down, and I taped them down so they wouldn't move as I ran them through my die cutting machine. So I ran those through my die cutting machine, and then I brought it back and I used that piece that I just cut, and I traced the circles onto another piece of cardstock. This card has a lot of different layers as far as the preparation goes. So I put those down, And then I picked some different colors that I would have as the backdrop behind the shaker areas. And I picked a nice orange and a nice purple, and I'll be using orange and purple sequins for those shaker areas as well. I chose a YG01 for the background with the carrot cake. And then I used a light purple, or I'm sorry, not light purple, a light orange, which is YR12 for the solid background behind the bunny. And after I filled that in, I did bring in a slightly darker shade just so I could put a little bit of shading underneath the bunny. I then used a light purple for the area behind the carrots and gives a nice flat shade. So after all of that Copic coloring was done, I prepped my card base. I'm using some Neenah Solar White 110 pound cardstock for my card base, and I'm scoring that at 5.5 to create a top folding card. All other instances of white cardstock for this card were actually the 80 pound version of the same cardstock. I put some adhesive on the back of that colored piece, and I'm going to line it up right over the top of that card base and press these two together. That just makes it so that that area is in the perfect spot. Now, I could have colored directly onto the card base, but the Copic markers would have bled through and shown on the inside of the card, and I didn't want that, so that's why I colored that purple and orange piece on its own. I then cut some window plastic or clear acetate to cover those shaker areas. I put some Ranger Multimedia Matte adhesive around the cut circles, and then I place that acetate right over the top. And I'm adhering this on the underside of the shaker area so that when I put everything together, those colored areas are in the right spots. To create the kind of well area of the shakers, I used some 3M Scotch adhesive tape. It's a foam tape, and I've doubled that back on itself so that it's super thick. And then I cut that into some more narrow strips. And this is going to allow me to wrap it around the circle area and get those foam tapes in just the right spot. Once you remove the release paper on the front and back of the foam tape, you should be able to manipulate the foam and wrap it around the circle shaker area. So I wrapped the larger circle, and then I went ahead and wrapped it around the smaller circle, and I was able to use a little bit of the larger circle's foam tape to complete the smaller circle's shaker area. And I also needed to add some adhesive on the other areas around this entire card front so everything is flat and I don't have any areas that are dipping down. I then used a couple different colors of sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. I'm using Tangerine, and I'm also using Pansy Purple. And then I'm going to put in a little bit of Sparkling Clear into both of these just for a little bit more sparkle and make it just a little bit more fun. For the most part, these are all just solid colors of sequins. We'll add a little bit of that Sparkling Clear in there as well. So then I picked up my card base, which has the Copic coloring on it, and I lined that up directly over the shaker area that I've created. And then pressed that down really well. And I walked my fingertips over that entire card to make sure that all of that foam tape was pressed down. And now I have two shaker areas. I'm going to go ahead and put some foam tape on the back of my colored pieces, and then I can press them down onto the card front exactly where I planned ever since I did that first sort of template at the very beginning of this video. As far as the greeting goes for this card, I used some black onyx cardstock from Gina K Designs, and I stamped the greeting, "You take the carrot cake," in some Versamark ink, coated that with some white embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. This is the Alabaster embossing powder. And then I heat set that till it was smooth and melted. And I was able to trim this down into smaller little pieces of cardstock, put some foam tape on the back, and then adhere it to the front of the card. And I put that directly over the large purple area. Thought it was the perfect size for this greeting. To finish off this card, I added a tiny bit of detail using a white Gelly Roll pen. This is the size 10 Gelly Roll pen, so it's a little bit thicker. Added some dots on the two areas with the carrots and carrot cake, and then I put a dash line around the bunny. That's going to finish the card for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you would like to see even more inspiration from the latest release from Spellbinders, head over to my blog. Today's blog post is a blog hop for the Spellbinders release, and there's lots of fun inspiration to hop along and see from other card makers. Once again, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in another video very soon.